Welcome to Institute of Forensic Experts. In this video, we will look into typical frauds and what type of tests a forensic experts should perform. Knowing what to look for is critical in building a fraud detection program. The following examples are based on descriptions of various types of fraud and the tests used to discover the fraud as found in the book Fraud Detection, using data analysis techniques to detect fraud. Fictitious vendors fraud. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Run checks to uncover post office boxes used as addresses and to find any matches between vendor and employee addresses and/or phone numbers. 2. Be alert for vendors with similar sounding names or more than one vendor with the same address and phone number. Altered invoices. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Search for duplicates. 2. Check for invoice amounts not matching contracts or purchase order amounts. Fixed bidding. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Summarize contract amount by vendor and compare vendor summaries for several years to determine if a single vendor is winning most bids. 2. Calculate days between close for bids and contract submission date by vendor to see if the last bidder consistently wins the contract. Goods not received. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Search for purchase quantities that do not agree with contract quantities. 2. Check if inventory levels are changing appropriate to supposed delivery of goods. Duplicate invoices. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Review for duplicate invoice numbers, duplicate date, and invoice amounts. Inflated prices. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Compare prices across vendors to see if prices from a particular vendor are unreasonably high. Excess quantities purchased. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Review for unexplained increases in inventory. 2. Determine if purchase quantities of raw materials are appropriate for production level. 3. Check to see if increases in quantities ordered compare similarly to previous contracts or years or when compared to other plants. Duplicate payments. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Search for identical invoice numbers and payments amounts. 2. Check for repeated requests for refunds for invoices paid twice. Carbon copies. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Search for duplicates within all company checks cashed. 2. Conduct a second search for gaps in check numbers. Duplicate serial numbers. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Determine if high-value equipment a company already owns is being repurchased by checking serial numbers for duplicates and involvement of same personnel in purchasing and shipping processes. Payroll fraud. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Find out if a terminated employee is still on payroll by comparing the date of termination with the pay period covered by the paycheck and extract all pay transactions for departure date less than date of current pay period. Accounts payable. Tests used to discover this fraud are 1. Reveal transactions not matching contract amounts by linking accounts payable files to contract and inventory files and examining contract date, price, ordered quantity, inventory receipt quantity, invoice quantity, and payment amount by contract. www.ifex.org.pk info@ifex.org.pk +92 51 234 7143